Hi again, and welcome back. So, business model, check. Pitch deck, check. Financial model, pending. Now, although you did include a financial model slide in your pitch deck, you need to include a much more detailed and structured one before you start your business. This is not only necessary for you, but also for your investors. The financial model basically shows how much money you have and how you're going to spend it. It helps you see the present and future position of your company even from the very beginning. A financial model is a financial summary that combines your historical data, your current business metrics, and your financial assumptions of the future. Now, why is it so crucial to have a clear financial model from the very beginning? An internal purpose. The model helps you as a founder of your company to start planning your revenue and cost forecasts. As you begin to plan your business, you will need to keep resorting to your financial model in order to assess the quality of your plans by either validating them or improving them. An external purpose. Investors are going to challenge you on two things: your assumptions and your numbers. So you need to have your guard up and be ready. Also, they will want to see how much money you need to raise and how you plan on spending it. Your financial model needs to serve 5 main objectives. 1. The revenue side of the model, showing you how your revenue is generated and how your business will make money. 2. Define your current and future expenditures and operating costs. Your fixed costs, which can also be called your overhead, indirect, or supplementary costs, are things that remain constant through a period of time. Examples are your rent, insurance, taxes, and depreciation. Your variable costs, however, also known as your direct or prime costs, are costs that are volume-related and they change in proportion to your output or business activities. These include credit card fees, sales commissions, part-time wages. 3. Estimate defensible future revenue tied to expenditure. For example, say you are an e-commerce company. You will be spending money on marketing so that customers buy your product. The money you spend on marketing must be tied to your customer acquisition cost, which shows your marketing expenditures divided by the number of new customers. 4. Describe how your requested investment will be spent. This is very important as you're showing your investors how you plan to spend the funds you're raising. Investors are risking their money, so they want to make sure it's being spent right. 5. Define your burn rate and runway. It's only natural that at the beginning, you'll be spending more money than you're actually making. Your costs will be building your product, acquiring customers, and hiring a team. Because of that, you need to show what your burn rate and runway estimates are. The burn rate is the rate at which you will be losing money, which is basically the excess of your revenue. Your runway shows how long you can operate before running out of money or breaking even. Now that you know your objectives, it's time I guide you through on some key tips as you're building your financial model. Do not try to project your finances for more than 3 years. You've just started, and there are many aspects that are unknown, and they will increase with time. Be pragmatic. Try to find the balance between being too detailed and too simple. Show that you have main triggers and defend them. Be conservative. A common mistake is to estimate higher revenue and lower costs. Most startups are very optimistic at the start and they end up running out of cash quicker because they didn't hit their revenue. Don't do the same mistake. Be a little bit more realistic. That way, your investment will serve you for a longer period of time. Don't rush into scaling up. Think long and hard before you decide to do that, because as you start scaling, you start burning more money. And if you do that before you're ready, you're going to be facing a lot more financial and operational issues. Don't hard code numbers in your Excel sheet. This will make your model difficult to stress test and adjust. You will need to have one assumption sheet that includes all inputs and everything else is just driven by that sheet. Integrate the balance sheet and cash flow calculations. That shows that you are forecasting the challenges in your cash flow position with confidence. Now, how should your basic financial model look like and what should it include? Your financial model should be 2 sections. The first is your introduction sheet, And the second includes the different parts of the Excel sheet. Your introduction sheet should include a general disclaimer about the confidentiality of the content and a representation of the numbers estimated for your company. Your second section is a little bit longer than that, so bear with me as we walk through its elements. Your summary sheet. This will include your yearly profit and losses statement, your key metrics and how they evolve, and your key ratios and how they change with time. And all these can be shown through graphs, showing the main revenue and expense trends. The assumption sheet. This will have all the inputs that are needed to make the model function. It's structured between your revenue and cost assumptions. Assumptions can include the number of transactions per month, the number of new users or customers, the average order value. Also, what are your driving costs? These should include your COGS, cost of goods sold, your marketing costs, which is how much you're spending per month and how many new customers this is generating for you. Your people costs, how big is your team growing with time? Your product costs, the cost of development, hosting, licensing, and your admin costs. Everything from rent, travel, office supplies. The model sheet. This will highlight the key metrics for your business, as well as the impact of the P&L. For example, let's say your team growth part has several functions with different people. You won't put this in your P&L sheet as it will clutter it, so you'll put it in your model sheet. Other kind of business metrics include the frequency of purchase and the number of new users. Well, you start showing your revenue and then gradually remove the cost elements, starting with the variable ones, and then followed with the fixed costs. Carry out this equation and you will get your profit costs. If your result is negative, then you are burning cash. So you need to show how much you're burning to show how much you need to raise. Now, let me walk you through some of the most used financial metrics. 1. Monthly recurring revenue. It simply shows how much money your product brings in per month. This metric measures revenue components which are recurring naturally, excluding one-shot fees and special payments. Sometimes, companies even use the annual recurring revenue. This kind of metric is widely used in SaaS businesses. 2. CAC. The customer acquisition cost shows you how much money you will spend to get one customer. It includes all kinds of marketing costs and is a key metric for both the owner and the investor, and is used to analyze the startup's scalability. 3. LTV. It's the lifetime value of a customer. It shows you how much money you will earn through a user during the product's lifecycle. This metric allows you to calculate not only the long-term value of a customer, but also the future net profit per one customer. Uber focused on speed to buy as many users as long as CAC was lower than LTV. Uber just didn't buy a product, but an entire network, and it worked. Other metrics include customer churn rate, average revenue per account or user, and annual contract value. So, we have discussed what your model should include and some of the key metrics to assess the functionality of it. Now let's walk through some of the marketing metrics. The daily active users and the monthly active users are important metrics in calculating user engagement. For example, you'll probably analyze daily usage for a social media oriented app while looking at weekly analysis for enterprise softwares. Now, obviously, the biggest daily active users or monthly active users rate you have, the better it is for your company. Facebook's DAU base, for instance, is 1.929 billion, and its MAU equates to 36.8% of the global population, which basically means everyone on Earth today. Session-related metrics. These kinds of metrics will include number of sessions per user, the average duration, and interval in order to analyze the behavior of your users. There are loads of different other metrics, such as gross profit, total contract value, the deferred revenue, billings, concentration risk, number of logins, activation rate. To understand more about financial models, we're going to chat with Eyad Sebai, a financial executive with more than 15 years of experience at leading global companies. Eyad will be answering some of our most crucial questions. Now let's go. Hi Eyad, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me on board.
Thank you for being with us here today. Now let's get straight into it. What is the main objective of building a financial model for early stage startups?
The main objective of the financial model is it tells the story of how the business will achieve its vision and mission, and breaking down the strategies into action, which ultimately roll out to the results of having a midterm to a long-term financial results. It also helps breaking down the revenue drivers or how you will achieve your revenue. And finally, it also allows for looking at risk planning and risk mitigation.
And what is the main framework and mindset applied when building your first financial model?
So the framework building a financial model should be around understanding whether you have a business that is viable or not. From a mindset perspective, I encourage you to be optimistic about the idea and believe in it. However, when it comes to the financial model, I advise you to be more conservative when it comes to the revenue build-up. This is just to ensure that you are building a self-reliant, self-sustainable, and profitable business for the future.
There's a saying that too many KPIs can cripple a company from moving. Is that true?
Having too many KPIs means having too many objectives, which can ultimately mean that you are spreading the resources too wide and too thin and lacking focus. My advice for any business is keep the business simple, focused, focus on your strengths, outsource what you lack expertise in.
Absolutely. And do the KPIs need to be operational based, financial based, or both?
To answer the question quite simply, they are actually intertwined. They're not mutually exclusive. Whatever you do operationally actually translates financially. A better way to probably look at KPIs is defining them by either leading measures or lagging measures. And usually leading measures is what you will do with your strategies, which translates into lagging measures when it comes to your profitability, your growth numbers or revenue.
And what would be the best tool to build a financial model on? Some startups and big companies use Microsoft Excel for that. Would that be ideal?
Excel actually remains one of the easiest, most convenient and inexpensive tools used across the boards, even big organizations today. The other skill to build on the information, which is the data points that you put on Excel, is how do you translate this information into a simplified visual matter, especially when you're presenting numbers to investors.
And perhaps, what is the best way to validate assumptions in a financial model?
Given it's a new company and there's no historical data, the best way to validate assumptions is either asking experts who have access to data within the industry that you're in, or buying these data points and reports from research companies such as Nielsen per se, that give you an understanding of the market landscape that you build your assumptions on.
And what would be the best way to stress test a financial model and make sure it flows when presenting it to investors?
In general, to stress test a financial model is we can go with the method of having scenario planning, which is having 3 scenarios. A high scenario, a likely scenario, and a low scenario. And within these scenarios, we are stress testing the assumptions that we built our financial model within, and at the same time looking at the risks and the impact of the risks materializing into the financial model.
What have you observed are some of the common mistakes startups make with their financial model?
So the top one on my list is actually marrying the operational objectives with the financial objectives. Financial models are very profit and loss driven from what I noticed. And actually what cripples a lot of companies is the actual cash flow management, which brings the importance of the balance sheet and the cash flow statement. The other common mistake I saw was the optimism behind the business and the success of the business and the idea can sometimes cloud the judgment when it comes to the reality of what the financial model looks like. My advice here is be as realistic as possible. And the final one is assessing your cost structure and understanding your cost structure. There's an idea of investing ahead of the growth. My advice here is make sure that you invest slightly behind the growth just to ensure that the resources you are deploying are fully utilized at any point in time and you don't have any waste.
Thank you very much, Eyad, for being with us here today, and it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise, Ali, thank you very much for having me in the forum, and I look forward for future interactions.
Well, that's all you need to know on financial models. Once you have your model secured, you're ready to build your business. Stay tuned for the next episode where I will let you in on how to build your team.